On today's Locked On Jayhawks, biggest takeaways from how this season has gone and what it should mean for KU Bill Self moving forward as they build future rosters, especially next year around Darryn Peterson.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here with Nick Schwert on another edition of Locked On Jayhawks. Thank you for joining us anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. Thank you to everydayers catching each and every show. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking some big picture future KU basketball talk with takeaways from what we could learn from this season. Probably more negatives, but some people, that's how they learn. It's like, oh, I don't want to be like my parents this way because they do this weird thing, and you watch them do it and it's just like, okay, not going to do that. So anyway, we'll also get into a little transfer talk and then whose stat line is it anyway. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Nissan and the 2025 all-new Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada team of the week later on in the episode. Okay, so Nick, I want to talk a little big picture KU basketball talk here. What do you envision being the biggest takeaway from this season and how it has gone toward future roster building?
The biggest takeaway is you can't build a championship team around two guys who can't shoot and another dude who's pretty slow. So, and the big takeaway moving forward is let's not try to find a loophole so that Hunter, Juan, and KJ all are playing for KU in 2026. That's my big takeaway. I mean, right, that is going back to the beginning of the offseason. Bill Self was talking that talk about how he was going to go out and they weren't going to repeat their mistakes from last year. And they thought that they could build a championship roster by keeping those three guys and simply changing the pieces around them. And you can't. And it's not an indictment on any one player. It's an indictment on the combination of them. Having specifically a point guard and a four, neither of whom can shoot, limits what you can do offensively, and it makes other teams' defensive game plans really, really easy. KJ's come on as of late. That's been great, but as has been the case so many times this year, it coincides with Juan playing some of the worst basketball we've ever seen from him. So your margin for error is super, super slim with this trio. And I think moving forward, the takeaway is just to maybe not have the hubris to assume that just because these are like program guys and they've been around and they know the system and they know what the coaches want, just because you have that doesn't automatically mean that these are the seniors that are going to lead you to a Final Four run. Because I think that's what happened. I think they said, hey, we've done this a million times before. Under-recruited guys, but they stick around and they figure out a way to become big-time players. And those guys on this year's team are just not at that level.
So I have one takeaway, but it's honestly a takeaway I had last year too. So I don't know, maybe that's not a good one, but it's like you have to have offense. I mean, this team on like KenPom, you look at it, they're still a top 10 defense in the country. The offense has not been good. And you look at last year, again, the defense actually ranked okay. The offense did not. And you look at every national champion since 2017, they've all had better offenses than defenses. Every national champion since 2017 has had an offense ranked in the top 6 heading into the NCAA tournament on adjusted offensive efficiency. So, you have to have offense. And the way I look at it, you have to have guys who can get buckets for you. That can come in a myriad of different ways. Like Hunter Dickinson can get you buckets, right, in the half court. But they don't have enough guys that can do that, right? And you have to have guys who can create in a one-on-one situation, in a one-on-one setting. I don't even know that my takeaway from this season is that you can't play two big basketball. I look at Houston. They're one of the best teams in the country. They're playing two bigs who don't shoot. The combo of Javier Francis and Jawan Roberts, they've attempted 9 threes on the season. But they have 3 guards around them who can get a bucket anytime they want, can shoot, can hit threes. So that's the big thing to me, where it's like, if you said that you had a pair of KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson, but it was around Devontae Graham and Frank Mason, sure, that might work, and I don't think this is the ideal roster build, but that might be my biggest takeaway. So that brings me to this next question. If you could only pick one of these things to fix moving forward, you can only pick one of them, Which do you choose and why? I mean, 4 options here. Having a score first point guard, and score first is kind of a relative term. I would count like a Frank Mason. I would count, still
Hey,
getting
Derek,
4 or 5
can we
assists.
change that? Can we change that to, instead of having a score first point guard, can we change it to not having a score last point guard?
Sure. But like Devon Dotson, right? You're still getting 3-4 assists per game.
Yeah.
Score first, right? So having a score first point guard, not playing 2 bigs next to each other, a more mobile center, or running an offense that just launches a ton of threes. Which of those, if you were able to sit in front of Bill Self and be like, do this, and he was like, okay, which of those you choose?
Score first point guard. Easy. Because everything else can be overcome by being good in other areas, right? You have 2 bigs. What if the two bigs are both really good and they play well next to each other? Great. Problem solved. Launching threes, like you don't have to launch a ton of threes to be an efficient 3 team. I can't remember what was the third option that you gave.
A mobile big man or not playing 2 bigs.
Again, like Hunter around the right pieces is fine, but I do think there are severe limitations to the guy who has the ball more than anybody else not being able to score on his own. I think that's an issue that you can't really overcome in other areas. And I think I texted this to somebody the other night during the game. I said, again, picking on Dajuan because he had a really bad night. But I said, I'm so done with the point guard not being an offensive threat. It's just a lame brand of basketball to watch. And every single time you watch, or even if you're just talking to friends or you hear Coach Self talk or whatever, Fran Fraschilla brings it up on like every single broadcast. He's like, well, when this guy was playing with NBA players, he looked like one of the best point guards in the country. I don't know if this team has any NBA players on it. It's like, that's fine. I shouldn't need a bunch of sick players around you for you to look good. Because to me, that's window dressing. To me, it's like, okay, so what are we actually proving here? That he was only good when he was around other good players? Or that somehow it's unfair that he's not? I want a guard. It doesn't have to be like an elite scorer. I don't need someone who goes out and scores 23 points a game. I don't need somebody who scores 20 points a game. But I would love a point guard who, when a play breaks down, 6 seconds left on the shot clock, I trust at the very least you're going to get to a spot and get a shot up. I mean, look at Diggy. Look at Diggy versus Houston, right? Into the game, like they run that play and he gets the ball at the top. All he needed was one dribble. And he's like this tall, okay? So I want that. I don't care if it's Diggy, but I just want a guy who could go and get a shot.
Okay, so that brings it into Darryn Peterson next year, who it sounds like he's going to play some point guard, but I view that more as like he'll play as a wing and he'll initiate offense, in the same way that you saw sometimes with like Wayne Selden, for instance, or with Andrew Wiggins. If you viewed it as Diggy Coit is the starting guard next to Darryn Peterson, you cool with that?
The hell yeah. Well,
okay.
You know what? I'm cool with it for now. And when I say for now, I mean, I'm assuming at some point in the next 2 games, Diggy's going to do something that will remind me why he was a free agent in August. But as of right now, Diggy's stock's at an all-time high. So, of course, I'm ready to go to the moon with Diggy Coit. I don't know what that fit would be like, and I don't know if that's in the plans, but I do love the idea that Diggy's, it sounds like, coming back for another season. Even if he's the same role he is this year, like you need dudes like that who are just dogs and have energy and who aren't afraid of any moment.
Yeah, and it's nice knowing that, hey, you don't have to bring in another transfer to play that role, and then they're pissed about it, and it doesn't work out. Like, you
Right.
know he's comfortable with it. Okay, how much of the fit around Darryn Peterson do you think is going to matter? And follow up to that, it feels like the hype is reaching a point that is like, this kid's going to be better than Andrew Wiggins and Josh Jackson. Are you there?
Andrew Wiggins gets kind of slept on. I
Yeah.
think it's because that team wasn't very good, but history.
And the last game he had was not good, right?
Yeah.
If he goes out scoring 25 points and they lose to Stanford because Stanford just hitting all these threes, I think it's probably remembered differently.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Andrew Wiggins was on a team with a bunch of other freshmen and Perry Ellis and Tart Black. You
Like,
know?
I put it this way. If you swapped Josh Jackson with Andrew Wiggins just the years they were in school, everybody would be like, that Wiggins dude is sick playing next to Frank Mason, you know?
Yeah. Granted, I mean, Andrew Wiggins was still a number one pick in the draft, and
Yeah, sure.
a decade later, still having a very good career. But he wasn't the transcendent talent that we thought he would be. Side note, Josh Jackson, 28 years old and like basically retired from basketball. It's crazy. But with Darryn Peterson, the beauty of a guy like that, who is he going to be point guard? Is he going to be an off ball? I don't really care. When you're a do-it-all player, guess what? You can kind of build around him however you want. Now, there is a best-case scenario. I don't know what that is, but you have options. You have options with what you want to put around him. I imagine whatever his position is going to be, Bill Self is going to hand the keys over to him. Now, am I as high on him as I was Jackson or Wiggins? I don't know. Probably not, but no specific reason why. I think with Darryn, the one thing I have confidence in is that any concerns, and I've heard a little bit of this, like, oh, well, Bill Self's going to ruin him, or he's not going to let him play, or he's not going to do this. If there's one thing I know for certain, Bill Self likes having strong, confident, talented point guards. It's the one position where I don't have any concerns with, like, young kid coming in. If he's good enough, he's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. It's not like a big guy. If he was the number one big guy in the country, you'd have reservations. If he was a wing, you'd have reservations. Look back to Kelly Oubre, right? That was kind of up and down at the beginning of the year, but with a guard, he's going to find a way. He's going to find a way, and I truly think like he is going to hand the keys to the team over to him the second he steps foot on campus.
All right, let's get on to an all-transfer team at Bill Self's time at KU. I want to get to that next, and then whose stat line is anyway. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Episode of the show today is brought to you by the Armada Team of the Week, which is brought to you as well by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked on College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength, the sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week for the Team of the Week here, I picked Houston on yesterday's show just to pick somebody else. How about we go with Michigan State, who has slowly turned into an awesome win for Kansas that is probably going to keep them in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State, a team who's horrible at shooting threes, 346 in the country. They're shooting under 30% from three, but they rebound. They make all their twos. They play good defense. And just like that, Michigan State, I wouldn't mind them if they were a 2 seed and Kansas was the 7 seed, even though I don't have a ton of confidence right now in things. But when it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Spartans have done so far this season. They're heavy duty. They're rugged, just like the Armada. And it's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, continuing on here on Locked on Jayhawks. So I wanted to, in thinking about some of the transfers, go over a all-transfer team at KU, because I was actually in my head, I was putting it together, and I think there's a very clear top, 6 transfers of the Bill Self era at Kansas, but it becomes difficult because 3 of those 6 kind of play the same position. One of them is Dedric Lawson, who I guess you could say plays the 4. But anyway, here's some players that come to mind. This isn't every player who ever transferred in, but I just want to throw these out there. Roderick Stewart, Zeke Mayo, Remy Martin, Malik Newman, Ryland Griffin, Jalen Coleman-Lands, Isaiah Moss, Kevin McCullough and Mario Little on the wing, Kevin Young at the forward position, and then the big men spot, Hunter Dickinson, Dedric Lawson, Jeff Withey, your guy, Hunter Mickelson, and then Tarek Black. If you're putting together an all-transfer team, I'll tell you what mine is. You can go from there or rip it apart, whatever you want to do. I think at the point guard spot, I don't know that you have a lot of options in just terms of pure point guards. And maybe this is telling me, but there's a reason I'm doing this. Remy Martin, I think, kind of has to be the pick. Do you say Zeke Mayo a point guard? Most of the guys are shooting guards, and maybe there is something there. Now, part of it is they've usually had a good guard that maybe they just haven't had to bring in the point guard from the transfer portal. But going back to the idea that they don't really have a lot of, guards to choose from at the point guard spot in the portal probably tells you all you need to know about, what position works well for Self to go into the portal and get, and maybe which ones don't. I would go with Malik Newman at the 2. Everything he did in March certainly matters a lot. I guess I would go Zeke Mayo and play a 3-guard lineup here. And then I'd play Kevin McCullough at the 4 and have Jeff Withey at the 5. And just have an awesome defensive lineup with some shooters up top. But it's interesting because
who was at the 2 for you?
Yeah, I had Malik Newman at the 2 and Zeke Mayo at the 3. Those would be the lineup I would put together if I was putting together like an actual team I wanted to succeed. But if you're doing it based on rankings, who just the top players are, you would have to have, Dedric and Hunter up there.
Yeah.
Let me start here. Is Withey the best big man transfer, or is it Hunter, or is it Dedric?
It's Hunter. I mean, it's definitely.
You think
Hunter.
it is?
Yeah, dude. Withey, the difference between Withey and Hunter Dickinson is that Jeff Withey was on a roster where his skill set was like the missing piece. It was the key. It was, hey.
Doesn't shot blocking, doesn't defense become the key for anybody? Like, isn't the roster build around Jeff Withey easier than it is with Hunter Dickinson? If you have Kevin McCullough at the 4 and Jeff Withey at the 5, like, good luck scoring on it.
I mean, Kevin McCullough is a wing defender, and he's only going to guard one guy. He's not like a rim protector. He's not like helping on the backside. So
that's why they got Withey.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think what you're going to find is that your team better have a great defense because you're not scoring. That's a bad offense.
Remy Martin, Malik Newman, Zeke Mayo?
Oh, sure. If you want to just like highlight all the good games those guys had and just like
I'm getting March
the fact that okay.
We're in March right now.
And you're getting March Remy Martin. Great. So you just get the best of everyone. I remember some downtimes for those guys. My roster honestly wouldn't be that different than yours. And again, I'm going to be saying that like you can't possibly justify picking Jeff Withey. I'm simply answering the question of like, is he the automatic pick? No.
No, I like the roster build better with it. No, I can understand the argument for Hunter, but you also get more years out of Jeff Withey. I think you've slept on Dedric Lawson because I think Dedric Lawson is just a shorter version of Hunter, but a much better shooter.
You think Dedric Lawson is not on the same level as?
I think he's a shorter version that was a much better shooter, and so it opens things up on offense.
Somehow, a worse athlete too. Frankly, I mean,
well, I don't know about that. Dude, Dedric averaged 25 points per game in his NCAA tournament career at Kansas.
Yeah,
he shot 39% from 3. Hunter's shooting like 21%.
Okay. See, everything with you revolves around threes.
I want shooting. I want space.
You're one of these internet basketball X's and O's guy where your only take is just like, well, you got to shoot threes.
You do.
Let's just get all guards. You're building a 2K team. Like we're doing a fantasy draft, and then you're like, I'm going to get Dirk at the 5. I got Rashard Lewis at the 4, and it's going to be impossible for you to guard us. Okay. I would agree that Remy and Malik are no-brainers. Those are like
you just crapped on it, and now okay.
No, I was crapping on the way you presented it, not exactly what you presented.
Bucket getters, dude.
Okay, Remy and Malik. Well, who else? Who else am I going to choose? Honestly, I don't know that I can take Zeke at the 3 right now. I just like what are my other options? Do I want?
That's the thing. You gonna go Rylan Griffin? You gonna go Jalen Coleman Lands?
No, I mean, do I go Isaiah Moss? Do I go?
Play Little? Kevin at the 3 and play big,
I don't want Kevin on my team.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still not over him quitting the team last year. Give me Isaiah Moss at the 3. I'm gonna put Jack Whitman at the 4 and Hunter Dickinson at the 5.
All right, that's a perfect way to end it. That's a perfect way to end it. All right, whose stat line is it anyway? Next. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On Jayhawks. We're going to finish up on this episode of the show with a little whose stat line is it anyway. If you're new to the show, You don't know what's going on here. I'm going to basically give Nick a stat, or in this case, stats, and he's going to try to guess who they are. And maybe they have a point. Maybe it's just a random stat. I'll let you decide. All right, the question for this one. So on CBB Analytics, they have a stat that I don't know why I said this has to be CBB Analytics. Anybody can do this. But it's a stat basically that combines shots at the rim with three-point shots. So it's like an analytic dream, right? Those are what analytic people want in basketball. Shots at the rim and three-point shots, right? And it puts together an effective field goal percentage for how you are doing at a combination of those two things. So in theory, if you're better at, this rim plus three-point shooting, you're an analytically inclined fellow, I guess. Would you like to guess the two best and the two worst players for KU during conference-only play, obviously among, qualified players?
The best and the two best and the two worst. I think it might be easier for me to start with the worst.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to think that Dajuan Harris is on that list.
Yes, so I thought you would not get to Dajuan Harris. I thought the worst one was obvious. Dajuan Harris is the second worst. 45.8% on that effective field goal percentage at the rim and 3-point. Where does that rank nationally? That puts him in the 17th percentile nationally among those two areas, which are pretty important.
And then the other one is AJ Storr.
Yes, that is the lowest one, 41%, 9th percentile nationally.
Yeah, he might be the worst player in Bill Self's history. The worst.
Which is crazy. Like, if you're just talking time at KU, certainly among rotation players, but how are you going to be able to say that? Because you know what's going to happen in a year. He's going to transfer to some other, I don't know. It's been so bad. I don't even know if it'll be another Power 5. But let's say it's like a lower Power 5 that's like a borderline NCAA tournament team where he gets to be the guy in terms of the offensive shots. And he's going to muster his way to 42% shooting to 16 points per game. And you're going to look back on it over his career and just look at his stats and be like, what do you mean that was the worst,
I don't even know if that's possible. I don't even know if there's another high major program.
But he did it last year. He did it on a Wisconsin team that also played two bigs. He did it on a Wisconsin team that played super slow.
Yeah, but now you're on the big stage. Nobody watches Wisconsin. Big Ten basketball plays on Sundays. KU plays on big Mondays. They play on prime time on Saturdays. They're on ESPN. They're on CBS. Now everybody's watching you, and they're watching you look like a rec league player. When he's out there, he doesn't even look like he's in a rec league game. He looks like he's warming up for a rec league game. He's just lackadaisical. The team's moving the ball around. He gets the ball, and he's just like, yo, and he's just starting to bounce between his legs. He's going nowhere with it. He has no idea what to do. They throw him a pass near the rim. He can't catch anything. Catching the ball is one of the fundamental aspects of being able to play basketball. Forget shooting. Forget skill. It's can you catch it? Can you pass it? Can you dribble? He can't do, and he is a bad basketball player. It's not a bad fit. He is a bad player. And I think any coach in America who's watching the tape on him is saying, keep him away. Keep him away from our program. And I can't for the life of me figure out why the Kansas coaching staff didn't have that exact same reaction.
Okay, what about the best? What do you think are the best?
The best. So, Hunter shot so poorly from three. He's so good inside. It probably cancels out. My guess is that there's nobody on this team that's really good.
No.
Okay. Well, Flory.
Flory is in the 99th percentile at 82%, but you take that one with a grain of salt because it's just, I will shoot if it is a dunk,
Yeah. And then did you say this is just conference play or this is
Yes, correct. This is the one that I don't think you're going to get. Although now you might because I gave you that hint.
Now I might. Is Diggy Corey?
No, he is up there. It is another guard though.
Is it Zeke?
It is Zeke Mayo. He's in the 88th percentile in this stat, 62%. In a cold spell right now.
Yeah, cold spell is pretty unlikely.
So I don't know. Yeah. Who do you have more hope for figuring it out the last couple weeks? Him or Rylan?
Him. Rylan, I don't know that Rylan's in his head. I'm just not sure he understands what's going on. I mean, he got benched for little Diggy Coy versus Houston. That tells you a lot. And then Bill says after the game, like, we played our toughest guys tonight. What's that tell you?
All right, quick follow-up.
AJ and Rylan sitting on the bench.
This is the last thing for tonight. Should Diggy Coy start against Arizona? Or play starters level minutes? I guess it doesn't really matter who starts, but,
Yeah.
should the main five, Diggy Coy, be in it?
Yes. It should be the same five we saw at the end of the game. And I think, and furthermore, you have your 7-man rotation. And then Rylan's 8, and then AJ is on the moon. Like, that's your rotation.
All right, AJ on the moon. Maybe that'll be the episode title. He's
Planet
Nick Schwartz.
Storr.
What do you got going on right now? Where can you find some of your work?
You can check out our podcast, Could Be Wrong, which is wherever you get your podcasts, and the full episodes on YouTube.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. He's Nick. I'm Derek Johnson, and we'll see you next time. We'll have a KU Arizona preview at you tomorrow here on Locked On Jayhawks. Also, anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page. See you then.